Good morning, guys, on Tuesday. I hope you enjoyed everything with the respiratory system yesterday. Today we're going to talk about pages 152 and 153, and I strongly suggest, exactly like we talked about yesterday, please have your assignment out as we go through this video, because once you hear an answer, you can stop the video, pause it, and write down the answer. You can copy right from the slides. But all this information is really taken page 152 and 153. Especially there's a big kind of a black box with a bunch of writing in on page 153. That's where you're going to especially find a lot of answers. And of course, going through this video right now. But here's what we mean when we're talking about the digestive system. You got to understand here, we talked about how the plasma is like the dumped up that takes food to every cell. Well, how in the world when we have this wonderful Mexican dish here, or this delicious juicy hamburger and fries, how does it get from a whole plate full to be so small to get into our bloodstream? And that our plasma can carry to every last little cell in our bodies. How in the world does that work? That's what we're going to learn today, and to be honest with you again, you can't help but say, God, you are an awesome, awesome God. But again, we need to get this food into our bodies and into our bloodstream and get it so small that it can actually go through our bloodstream and literally feed our cells in our body. And well, you want to ask about or understand what the first step of digestion is? That's chewing. You guys have done this ever since you ate solid foods when you were little. You put food in your mouth and you start chewing. Now, I hope this has never happened to you, but you remember those two tubes in your neck. Trachea is for air with the epiglottis, and when you're chewing, your esophagus is open. Your epiglottis covers your trachea, and your esophagus is for food, right? You guys may have had it where all of a sudden you cough something up because, oops, you didn't chew enough. Remember the goal. You got a big plate of food here and you need it so small that it can fit to your bloodstream and your plasma in your bloodstream. Chewing is going to help, and the more you chew, the easier it is going to make it on your body, right? You got to get it really small, and you do that with chewing. The first step with chewing isn't to get it so small it can fit to your bloodstream. You just need it so small it can fit to your esophagus. The rest of your digestive system can make it even smaller. And this is exactly what also helps. It's called saliva. You might know it as spit. That's really what it is. Spit and saliva are the same thing. A more scientific name for spit is called saliva, or your salivary glands. And this is what sometimes if you smell your auntie cooking something up so nicely and all of a sudden your mouth starts watering, that's your salivary glands working overtime because they smell the food and your brain says, hey, I bet you we're going to eat soon. So why in the world is your spit or your salivary glands making that spit? What's the point? Is it just to be nasty and drool? No. Your saliva plays a very important role because it actually has chemicals in it. Very, very weak chemicals for us, but chemicals that actually help start the digestive system. It actually starts help breaking down food. Also, you guys know what happens when things get slippery. Like if you're playing catch with a football and it's wet and rainy, it's really hard to catch, isn't it? Because it's so slippery. Well, think about that with food. Now your esophagus can push it down, but with the saliva or with the spit, it helps make it more slippery to go down, less of a choking hazard, and just makes it easier to go down your esophagus. Well, let's talk about the esophagus. I know we talked about it a bit last week, but this is simply the tube that goes from your throat to your stomach. That's all it's for. You swallow, it goes down your esophagus and into your stomach. Yes, keep chewing so you can make it smaller. But your esophagus is literally a ring full of muscles, a tube of muscles. Call that a sphincter. And it literally just pushes the food down as it goes along. It's almost like a snake. You see that digesting, right? A big animal it eats, you can just see it go down its body. Well, that's what kind of your esophagus is doing. It's just squeezing it down. And if you ever want to time it, I know you can't see it, but it takes about 3 seconds when you swallow, count to 3, and your food is in your stomach. Pretty cool. Now again, remember this, your esophagus and your trachea are not the same. Just kind of a review, we've talked about this before. Trachea is for air, esophagus is for food. Just please don't get them confused. And then of course your good old epiglottis, we talked about this. You need this flap here. And I know we said this before Thanksgiving, but that's why Grandma says, don't talk with your mouth full. Because you're making it really hard on your epiglottis because you need air to talk. And every time you're talking, your epiglottis is opening up. And if you swallow or laugh, with food in your mouth, food can go down your trachea, which is not for food. Trachea is for air, right? Esophagus is for food. And that's why your body goes nuts and crazy trying to get that stuff out of your lungs because it says, hey man, we got the epiglottis here. Listen to your grandma. Stop chewing with your mouth full. Stop laughing with your mouth full. Chew, swallow, then talk. That way none of that food gets down your trachea. It goes down your esophagus and into your stomach just like it should. Now your stomach. This is an amazing thing here, guys. It's the bottom of your esophagus. And it really is what we call that smooth muscle when we went through the muscular system. If you want to know, it's actually, if you've got your ribs, it's actually a little bit to your left down here. But if you ever have, like, after Thanksgiving dinner where you're really sitting and it's like, oh, my stomach is so full. Well, actually what you're saying is exactly true. Because your stomach can actually expand a bit. Now, it can't expand so much. It's not unlimited, but your stomach can expand to get more food. And the stomach's job is literally to mash it up. It just is big muscle, and all it's doing is mashing it up. Your saliva and your chewing is going to help make the food smaller. But the stomach's main job is to get it so small and so mashed up, it's almost like a liquid, that it can get into your bloodstream. Not yet, but it's getting closer. I hope this doesn't happen to you, and I'm not ever trying to be gross. But if you ever have that where you get sick in the middle of the night and you puke up stuff, what is it? It's usually a liquidy paste. Now, you might see some chunks of food. I'm sorry, I know you don't want to sit here and talk about puke and vomit, but I'm just trying to get you to understand that shows what your stomach is actually doing. It's got different chemicals that your body puts in your stomach, and it's literally mashing up that food into a liquidy paste, and so it can get into your bloodstream. Again, not yet in your stomach, but it's getting it ready to do that. Pretty amazing. After it leaves the stomach, it goes into your small intestine. So esophagus, stomach, small intestine, and I mean your small intestine, we might call it guts, but your small intestine is really a long part of your intestines that go all throughout your stomach and all throughout your abdominal area. But it just is winding tube. And if you're wondering what's going on in the small intestine, well, remember, that's where the stomach made it into a soupy paste, and it goes into your small intestine, and it all goes in one direction. And this is where it also has your liver and your pancreas, which are in this abdominal area, and it gives it even more chemicals to help digest the food even more. Remember, you just had a big hamburger and fries, and you need to get it so small it can get into your bloodstream. Your chewing helped, your stomach mashed it up, and your small intestine is getting it even smaller. Now, In your small intestine is actually where the food that you ate can get into your bloodstream. That happens in your small intestine. That's where the plasma picks a lot of it up, and your villi are what really help. Now, villi, they're not fingers in your small intestine, but they look like it. And this is what connects your small intestine to your bloodstream. They're literally there, and they're sucking up the food, and they're putting it into the bloodstream and into the plasma in the bloodstream so it can go off to the cells. This is where it happens, in the small intestine, and it's this villi that are like these little finger straws in there that are moving around, grabbing it and sucking it up and putting it into your bloodstream. It's amazing how God made our bodies. It's amazing how God made our bodies. But that's what's going on. Now, if you're wondering about your large intestine, that's at the end of your digestive system. You can see here the large intestine is the yellow part. The small intestine is the pink. It's really wrapped all around our body in our abdominal area. Yellow is the large intestine. And, well, it's got two jobs. Job number one, come on. Job number one, come on, there we go. Is number one, the large intestine removes a lot of the liquid. Remember, your stomach and your small intestine spent a lot of time trying to make it into a liquid paste. Well, once it goes in your villi from your small intestine into your bloodstream, remember what the plasma does? It gives food to your cells and it takes away the waste. Now that's still a liquidy paste. So it gets back, the plasma gets a dump truck and says, here you go, large intestine, here's all the waste. Here's all the stuff your body doesn't need. And so it's this liquidy paste, and your large intestine's job is to, number one, try to get rid of as much of that liquid as possible. And number two, it's kind of a holding tank. And you can probably start guessing how it leaves the body. That's when you got to go number two, right? That's what's going on in your large intestine. That's what, sorry to be gross, but that's what's going on, is it's forming the poop to get out of the body. Now again, I'm not trying to be gross, but if you've ever had diarrhea where it's really liquidy, there's something in your body that your body's saying, whoa, we got to get rid of this. Get it out of the body. And what is happening is not giving the large intestine enough time to remove the liquid. That's why it is so nasty and liquidy, why we call it diarrhea. If everything's working properly, your large intestine is given enough time to get the liquid out, and it has enough time to store it until all of a sudden you say, I gotta go potty. That's what's going on. So, really, again, let's praise our Savior and say, God, you made this amazing way how you thought of everything, but all to deal with the digestive system, guys. Here is your assignment. 8 questions. Again, rewatch the video if you need help, or page 153, that big black box with all the writing in. That'll really help you out, guys. Hey, Lord's blessings as you praise your Savior.